Happy Friday. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish, getting you ready for a big weekend of college and pro football. Thanks for tuning into the show. Coming up a little bit later, we'll give you a full preview of all the games going on this weekend in college football with Bill Bender from Sporting News. Also the latest in fantasy football. Our old buddy Joe Pisapia will be along with us. We'll have it all covered for you throughout the show. And, of course, recapping everything that goes on in the NBA, NHL, and NFL from last night. That's probably a good place to begin here on the show yesterday. If you caught the game and streamed it on Amazon Prime yesterday, not much action in the first half of the game, but the second half, pretty compelling, as the New York Jets finally pick up a win. They do it at home against the Houston Texans. They come through in a lot of big ways, including Aaron Rodgers. 21-13 final score there. Jets do end up covering that strange line, as I suspected yesterday here on the show. Jets now back in a position, if they win out, maybe potentially to make the playoffs. By the way, the Houston Texans have not looked great, really, for the entire season, as they're trying to pick up the pieces as well. Also, some strange plays in this one. An unfortunate drop, as you see there, by a receiver right before he goes into the end zone, and an incredible catch by Garrett Wilson in the back of the end zone to give the Jets the lead, which they never surrendered, which you see right there. Aaron Rodgers talked about his play and also how the Jets had better energy in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I was terrible. We had a touchdown call back, taken off the board. Silly play. But, I feel like the energy was good at halftime. We had a chance to kind of cash it in there, Morgan gave a little speech, which was good. We all kind of were positive, talking. Nobody was isolating at halftime. And we just knew, hey, let's go out and score every possession. We said we were going to score 28-30. I kind of counted as 28 tonight, even though the scoreboard says 21. But proud of the way we responded in the second half. And I played about as bad as I could in the first half and knew it had to get better from there.
What did you say to teammates at halftime?
At halftime? I didn't say a whole lot. I mean, I was talking to the line. I think it was just keep communicating, talking to the line about what runs they like. Talk to receivers about a couple different things to be alert for. But we just had to stay positive and had to believe. And the first drive was the most important possession of the game. Went down the field, scored 6 minutes, converted fourth down. That was big.
Yeah, I think right now when you look at the Jets, you look at a team that seems to finally have it going. 21 points, and could have been more if little blunder there near the end zone. Meanwhile, blundering has been the story for the Houston Texans. Strange season for them, good record. But a lot of folks think they should be playing better. That definitely is the case for their quarterback, C.J. Stroud, and even their head coach, DeMeco Ryans, says things got to change.
The frustrating part about it is, to play well in the first half and not come out the second half and not tackle the proper way, not stopping the run, all right? And also when it comes to just everything about it, not protecting, getting the quarterback hit, that's just not good football. So the frustrating part about this is, we didn't come out and we didn't execute well enough to win the game. We didn't make plays in the second half to win the game. So that's frustrating, but that's the NFL. Like, if you want to win, your playmakers have to step up and make plays, and that's what we have to see moving forward. Yeah, it doesn't matter who's out there for me. Like, it's team football, and losing Will definitely hurts. He's one of our best players, but everybody has to step up and make plays.
It's hard, to just sit here right now and think about what happened because you didn't watch film yet. But, of course, it's embarrassing. And, to come out here on a primetime game and, get embarrassed like that is never fun. And, I believe, we have to be better in a lot of areas. And that starts with me. I think there's plays I got to make, throws I got to make. Times I got to sit in the pocket and just trust my guys. So I really point the finger at me and realize, I got to be better as a football player. And, if we want to win, this is not the recipe for it. We got to learn how to dominate and stop learning how to, just go with the flow and play in the fourth quarter. Like, we should be able to, play good in the first half and then roll into the second. I think we got to have a better mindset as a whole.
I think right now the Houston Texans still in a good playoff spot, but they're going to have to play better if they have further aspirations than the first round. Meanwhile, in the National Football League, some key injuries that we're going over and reviewing everything. But first, a key injury in the NBA. Paolo Banchero, the great player on the Orlando Magic, who's off to such a great start, has been diagnosed with a torn right oblique and sidelined indefinitely. The team announced on Thursday he'll be reevaluated 4 to 6 weeks. Through 5 games, he leads the Magic in scoring, assists, and minutes, and he even had 50 points in Monday night's game against the Indiana Pacers. Really tough loss in the NBA for the Orlando Magic. Puka Nacua, who missed a lot of time with a lower leg injury for the Los Angeles Rams, something has crept back up on him this week. He's missed some practice. Same knee that he injured during training camp has held him out of some practices. He was a limited participant on Thursday. We'll see the practice update today, and we'll update you a little bit later here on SportsGrid. Micah Parsons, Deron Bland, Trevon Diggs, all out of Cowboys practice going into the week. DeMarcus Lawrence on injured reserve. Boy, Cowboys certainly up against it, taking on the Atlanta Falcons. The Saints' great wide receiver, Chris Olave, who's been out with a concussion, is considering wearing a Guardian cap. Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL, has said the use of the cap has reduced concussions by 52%. So maybe we'll see Olave wearing that this week. Also, the Hall of Fame is getting closer and closer to inducting some new members. Tom Coughlin, Mike Shanahan are among 9 Hall of Fame coaching candidates that could potentially get in this coming season. Also, Mike Holmgren, Chuck Knox, Dan Reeves, Marty Schottenheimer among some of those as well. Matthew Sluka, who left as quarterback of UNLV after a great start to their team over that NIL dispute that he had, where he essentially said that some promises were not met, has officially entered the transfer portal. He'll be very high sought after, no question about that. His agent, Marcus Cromartie, said on Thursday he's in the portal. He left after a 3-0 start to the season. And Sluka and his father basically said that he was owed some money that he never got. We'll see if this new school decides to pay up. The Big 12 has announced that no games were compromised in the story that we brought you yesterday with some technology issues with the helmet communications. Apparently, people could just access the information that coaches were transmitting in the helmets to their quarterbacks and some of their defensive players, but the Big 12 says nothing has been compromised. Indiana's going to get their quarterback back this week. Curtis Rourke is going to start against Michigan State. Certainly Indiana's had a great start to their season, so good to see they get their quarterback back. Also, tonight in college football, one step closer to the Heisman. Could Ashton Genty do it? Well, needs a big game tonight. He's plus 450 on the FanDuel to win the Heisman. The great running back in Boise State are 23.5-point favorites tonight against San Diego State. Closer and closer, it appears, the Philadelphia 76ers need to start getting some of their healthy players back, and it could be that Joel Embiid is the first one to return. He's completed multiple 5-on-5 scrimmages in recent days. His season debut, apparently imminent, could happen as soon as this weekend. The Grizzlies beat the Bucks last night, 122-99. The Bucks are struggling, 1-4 on the season. Memphis is 3-3. The Jazz, speaking of struggling, 0-5 to start the season. They lose to the San Antonio Spurs. Wemby, 25 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists. And also the Phoenix Suns were down 20. They came back to push it to overtime and beat the Clippers 125-119. In the NBA tonight, the Celtics are 11-point road favorites in Charlotte with a total of 231.5. Cleveland is 5-0. They'll try to make it 6-0 tonight as they take on the Magic. Denver is underdogs tonight against Minnesota. And Oklahoma City, they're undefeated. They'll take on Portland tonight. They can move to 5-0. John Fisher, the owner of the Oakland, now Sacramento, future Las Vegas Athletics, has said that he plans to offer $1 billion toward a new stadium, which will include mostly night games in Vegas, still to be determined. A trade in baseball yesterday, the Atlanta Braves traded Jorge Soler to the Angels for Griffin Canning. The City of St. Petersburg Council has voted to help clean up Tropicana Field to get the stadium ready for at some point next season. That costs $6.5 million. And legendary broadcaster Bob Costas has decided to stop doing play-by-play after 42 years. Bill Bender's up next.
He will be 2-7 against top 5 opponents in his 6 full seasons with the Buckeyes.
Now you're going to take on the road, one of the best rush defenses in the country in Penn State. You're already having trouble rushing the ball. So what does that mean, Ben? That means Ohio State is going to have to rely on Will Howard to throw the ball on the road.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire. We got a big game going on this weekend in college football, one of the bigger ones. They're playing it during the day, too. I thought all the great games were primetime, not so much. Ohio State takes on Penn State, a tradition like no other in the Big Ten, different-looking Big Ten for sure, as Bill Bender joins us here on the show to give his official pick in the game, preview it as well. And, Bill, I think these two teams have been the class of the conference thus far. Ohio State, certainly still seething after that loss to Oregon, but a win against Penn State in Happy Valley would certainly put them back in the 3 spot or the 2 spot, I would think.
Yeah, it would open up the path to Indianapolis. And you have this situation where I think both teams are probably going to go to the college football playoff regardless of what happens Saturday. But the stakes would be this. It would be the winners probably going to the Big Ten championship game. The losers probably going to have to play a road game in the first round of the college football playoff. And it's more about the pressure on the coaches here to win a big game. Ryan Day, 2-6 against top 5 teams. I hear that going to the bus stop here in Columbus every day about that. That record's basically memorized. And then James Franklin, 1-9 against the Buckeyes. I'm sure it's the same way in Happy Valley.
Yeah. I think so, too. Something's got to give in this one, but it hasn't been Penn State. I mean, they really have had a hard time beating Ohio State. And a lot of these games, by the way, Bill, have not been close. I mean, you got to go back to 2019 in a 1-score game, essentially, unless you count some of these 8-point ones. But, I mean, why do you think it's been so dominant? Why do you think Franklin has had such a hard time against OSU? You would think that 1 out of 5, but not even.
Yeah, it's wild to me that Penn State hasn't won this game since 2016. And you could make the argument that they shouldn't have won that game. Urban Meyer brought the field goal team out for a long field goal. It got blocked, and Grant Haley ran it back, and that's the last time Penn State won this game. Last year, for example, it was Marvin Harrison. The Buckeyes had him. Penn State didn't. And in this game, I'm wondering if Jeremiah Smith is that guy. If you want to criticize Will Howard, I just don't think it's fair. He's had an 80% completion percentage the last 2 weeks. He's been a difference maker. They're not running the ball well, and their offensive line has been an issue. And then for Penn State, is Drew Aller going to play? If Drew Aller doesn't play in this game, it's really hard for me to pick Penn State, knowing that they're going to have a hard time pushing the ball down the field in the pass game with Bo Pribula, at least more problems against a very good Ohio State defense. So it's hard for me not to pick the Buckeyes in this one, with the understanding that that offensive line is a real concern on the road no matter what time they play this game.
Yeah, it is. And it should be a fun one, a fun day in college football. The SEC game of the week is A&M against South Carolina, probably. I guess. This is really one that A&M has put themselves right back in the playoff picture. 1 loss, and really you can't indict any team for 1 loss right now in college football based on the first few weeks of the season, Bill. A&M 2.5-point road favorites this week at South Carolina. Total is low, 43.5. Boy, I mean, I know the Gamecocks are going to be ready for this game. I mean, this is the game of the season for them. A&M's not looking past, though, I would not think, against South Carolina, are they?
No, and I typically obey your, be careful with road favorites, especially in the SEC when the line's this short. We saw this earlier this season with LSU going to South Carolina when they were a touchdown favorite. I think Texas A&M's got to start Marcel Reed. They haven't made an official announcement, but he energizes the running game. Johnny Manziel endorsed that line of thinking. And as you're right, this will be a Super Bowl of sorts for South Carolina. Shane Beamer 5-6 against the spread as a home underdog with 4 straight up victories. So yeah, you have to be careful going into Williams-Brice at night, ABC Spotlight, all those things. All that said, I think Texas A&M will find a way to win this game, continue to push toward a 10-1 season going into the finale against Texas. How fun would that be? And Mike Elko seriously deserves some Coach of the Year consideration.
He does. Yeah. I mean, Jimbo Fisher was the savior for A&M. That never happened. And by the way, if Bill is right, look at A&M's odds to get into the playoff. They're going to be minus money if they win this one. This is the last plus money you'll see on the Aggies if they beat South Carolina. Right now, they are even money to get to the college football playoff. K-State plus 155. Bill mentioned he likes them earlier in the week. And then you have Ole Miss and SMU. SMU, a big favorite over Pitt this week. Okay, so SEC championship odds. Let's take a look at those real quick, Bill. Get your opinion here, and then we'll move on to the final game of the week. Georgia, once again, the favorite, followed by Texas, and then you have A&M. If they win, last time you can get plus 460. We understand that's the case as well. Anybody else interest you on that list going into the weekend?
I mean, no. I think Georgia's your bet. And, Kirby played the underdog card. They play Florida this weekend, and I kind of like Florida to cover in that game, but I don't know that Georgia's going to lose again, at least until they get to Atlanta. So give me the Bulldogs there. Like Texas A&M, if they win this game, good bet to make a run and an underdog pick there.
Yes, a strange season for Texas, by the way. Looked so good the first few weeks and have not looked good since. And so until they show more, I may back A&M over them as a possibility. All right, Oregon now up to 14.5-point favorites this week at Ann Arbor in Michigan. We thought, Bill, that this was going to be the game of the year in college football. I mean, you looking back at the schedule at the beginning of the season, the games that Oregon had to play, Ohio State and Michigan, were really those two that we were looking at, and this is nowhere close to that. I guess the only Michigan, I don't believe has any chance to beat Oregon, but can they keep it close? Can they make this a respectable game? Maybe use some of the game plan that Ohio State had?
Maybe. And I think so. The thing to watch here is if they run 60 plays or less, that means they're in the game. Michigan can play keep away a little bit with the running game, keep Oregon off the field, play and lean into their defense. This is Oregon's toughest road game to date. It's not playing at Purdue. It's a 2-time zone game at Michigan. I think the Wolverines hang around. Kitchen sink game for them. A little bit of momentum off the Michigan State win, but it's not going to be enough to stop Oregon, especially if Will Johnson doesn't play in the game. So I like it right on the line. I'm going to take Michigan to cover, though.
All right, Michigan covers the 14.5, Bill. Awesome stuff. We'll see you back next week here on NewsWire.
Hey, I appreciate it, Craig. Thank you.
All right, coming up, latest injury news in the National Football League. Dr. David Chow joins us from SICScore.com for the very latest on TJ Hawkinson, T. Higgins, Derek Carr, and Brian Thomas. Don't go away.
He will be 2-7 against top 5 opponents in his 6 full seasons with the Buckeyes.
Now you're going to take on the road, one of the best rush defenses in the country in Penn State. You're already having trouble rushing the ball. So what does that mean, Ben? That means Ohio State is going to have to rely on Will Howard to throw the ball on the road.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. It's Friday, so it's injury notes in the National Football League. We'll hear from Dr. David Chow. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. All right, we begin with the Jacksonville Jaguars, already without Christian Kirk. Is it possible that the Jaguars will have 2 wide receivers off the field this week? Very odd injury for Brian Thomas Jr. of the Jaguars, who fell on a football last week. Here's the latest injury updates with Dr. Chow from SICScore.com.
The Jaguars wide receiver fell on the ball, injured his ribs. There is no rib fracture. It is likely rib cartilage injury, which can be painful. The Jaguars really need him since Christian Kirk is on IR with a broken collarbone. Gabe Davis still questionable, and Jacksonville needs a win desperately. Limited practice so far for him gives him a chance to play, but it is painful. It is a pain tolerance and functional issue, not dissimilar to that of Jaden Daniels, who played through. Maybe harder for wide receiver to play through, but hope is alive that Thomas has a possibility of playing this week in Week 9, although not at 100%.
All right, we'll see if he gets on the field. Jaguars will be up against it, to say the least. Good news for the New Orleans Saints. They've been up against it for weeks. Can't score any points. It's been brutal. The good news is there's a chance Derek Carr returns for the Saints at quarterback this week, and Dr. Chow talks about what his injury status is.
Derek Carr says he's not a savior, but he will be a saint this week against the Carolina Panthers. This is Dr. David Chow, Pro Football Doc at Sports Injury Central. Derek Carr will play this week through an oblique injury. Initially said to be a 4 to 6 week injury. We never thought it would be that bad. He's missed 2 games, so really he'll have 3 weeks before he plays. We expect him to be able to play and play well. Rust is the bigger issue than his health against the Panthers. He will return as the Saints starting quarterback this week. And yes, Chris Olave will be there despite taking another hit.
Yeah, the good news is that Olave will be on the field at the same time as Carr. Usually that's a good thing for the New Orleans Saints. Meanwhile, are we going to finally see the return of tight end TJ Hawkinson? Dr. Chow weighs in on his chance for playing for the Vikings.
Welcome back to TJ Hawkinson. The Vikings are likely to activate and play him this week in Week 9. Go to Sports Injury Central for all the latest, but the details are that he suffered an ACL, MCL. This will be his first time playing in the 2024 season. It will be great to have him back, but do not expect him at 100%. Recovery from an ACL is not a light switch, not all of a sudden. It's more a slow sunrise. And that sunrise is actually beginning now for the Vikings tight end. Some good help for Sam Darnold to get the Vikings out of their losing streak back on the winning ways. But don't expect normal TJ Hawkinson just yet. That's why we have a 6 score still low at Sports Injury Central, SICscore.com.
Still great to get Hawkinson back on the field in a season where the tight end position has been a tough one, to say the very least. All right, Cincinnati Bengals are in a similar spot, I think, than the Jets were last night, where they basically have to almost win out to get back to the playoffs. The problem for the Bengals is, once again, another injury issue for their great wide receiver T. Higgins, who showed up on the injury report on Wednesday. Will he play this week alongside Jamar Chase? Dr. Chow weighs in on the possibility.
Midweek quad injuries, no bueno. T. Higgins is very unlikely to be able to play for the Bengals in what Joe Burrow calls a must-win game. Quad important for acceleration and deceleration. It only happened barely a week ago. It's still early. He hasn't practiced ahead of week 9, but it happened in the lead up to the week 8 contest. So it hasn't even been 7 days yet. It'll be maybe 10 days when the Sunday game rolls around. With this short timeline and muscle injury, would be surprised if Higgins could play. The Bengals already know this and are game planning around it. Go to SICscore.com for all the latest.
And the thing is, with the Bengals, they really haven't had a fantastic receiver to go alongside Jamar Chase. So I would expect Chase to have another big game this week with Joe Burrow and Cincinnati. All right, coming up next, we got Carver in the house. Carver High weighs in on everything going on in the National Football League. We'll have a preview of a couple of games coming up this week and a whole lot more. And also, don't forget, Joe Pisapia will be along with some fantasy goodness. So stay with us here on The Grid. We'll be right back.
He will be 2-7 against top 5 opponents in his 6 full seasons with the Buckeyes.
Now you're going to take on the road one of the best rush defenses in the country in Penn State. You're already having trouble rushing the ball. So what does that mean, Ben? That means Ohio State is going to have to rely on Will Howard to throw the ball on the road.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Let's take a look at last night's game in the NFL and a preview of the games this weekend. Maybe a preview of the show coming up 3 o'clock Eastern today for El Coast to Coast. Mike Carver is with us as he's ready to go, and I'm sure you got a fun show planned, Carver. Always Friday. It's a great day for all of us, right? Ahead of the football weekend, final look at all the college games, all the pro games. Thanks again for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Craig, it's always good to see you, my man. Great to be back with you on NewsWire, as always. And yes, we love Fridays. It's such a huge day. We always have Coach Bowden with the college. The doc comes in, Dr. Chow with all the injuries. Always a big Friday on Coast to Coast. And we got tons of games to talk about, which is always a lot of fun, too.
Yeah, big games in college tonight, too. All right, so what do you make of last night's game between the Texans and Jets? It was like a snooze fest pretty much for an hour and a half, and all of a sudden it felt like both teams woke up a little bit. Jets, I guess this has got to be their model the rest of the season is try to play really good defense and squeak out a couple of touchdowns. They were able to do that yesterday, some good fortune. Actually they had bad fortune and good fortune, a great catch and then a blunder in the end zone. So, I still don't think the Jets are going anywhere, but I'm a little concerned with Houston, too, because they have not played their best football, and we're almost 3 months into the season.
I was going to say that to you, actually, Craig. We'll do the Jets side of this in a minute, but with Houston now, you look at the past couple of weeks, and I know they won last week against Indianapolis, but I didn't think they looked great there. They seem like the type of team that, with not having Collins, now they're not going to have Diggs either for the rest of the season. It's like they're a team that if you can get up a couple of scores on them, I don't know if they have the offense right now to come back from big deficits. So I think that could be a problem, and I think Houston's defense may be a little bit overrated so far this year. For the Jets, though, this really put them back in the mix, right, Craig? Because I think Rodgers said it best last night. I saw a clip of him saying, there's a big difference between 2-7 and 3-6, and especially when you look at this AFC. Because that last spot, you look now, Chargers, Colts, Bengals are 3-6 also. Like, the door is kind of open, and if the Jets can get that kind of offensive performance and get Adams going and get Wilson and get then you look at their schedule, there's some winnable games coming up here over the next few weeks for them. They could get themselves back into this mix to maybe sneak into that last spot.
Yeah, I'm still skeptical, but 9-8, I suppose.
You should be.
We saw last year. We saw last year what the last week of the season provided, not knowing who was going to get in, and I think it was the Steelers that backdoored their way in last year. So, I suppose anything can happen if it comes down to the last game of the season. All right, let's move ahead to the Dolphins and Bills because we've got a big line change here. The Bills were 6.5-point favorites, now down to 5.5, total of 48.5 points. And, the way I kind of view this is, Mike, you watch very closely the Bills, clearly. The Bills have been amazing the last month. The Dolphins have been pretty horrible. And usually that's a recipe for a cover when I'm getting 6 points in the NFL. I don't know that the Dolphins are going to beat the Bills, but historically speaking, the Dolphins, when their backs are up against the wall in Buffalo, sometimes they just have these magical games that end up close. Am I asking too much for a close game between Miami and Buffalo on Sunday?
I think the number is attainable for Miami this week. Now, look, Buffalo has, in the Josh Allen era, they've owned the fish. Allen's 11-2 against Miami. I think he's won Player of the Week 3 or 4 times in that span. He has had some massive games against the Miami Dolphins in his history. I think it's a big advantage for Miami. Usually, Craig, you know this, they come and play this game late in the year, December. Snow, cold, bad weather. They're catching a break here first Sunday in November, and we know weather in the Northeast has been absolutely beautiful, and the same thing coming up this Sunday in Orchard Park. So that's a good break for them. Line's a little fishy to me. I think the Bills win, and they continue to really, they got a chance to wrap the NFC East up by Thanksgiving, the way things are looking right now. But I think Miami, you're going to see some push from them. I think they're a little upset, obviously, what happened last week. They had that game against Arizona and let it get away from them. Second week with Tua back in since the concussion. I think they're going to be able to put a couple of points on the board. Wouldn't surprise me if Buffalo's going to be in for a dogfight here. They win, but that's 5.5 to 6.5, depending on where you're looking at it right now. Could be tricky.
Yeah, and truthfully, the Bills dominate the Dolphins with wins and losses, but the games tend to be close. So I am a little
I agree.
surprised with the line there. All right, so the line in the Lions Packers this week is telling us as of right now that Jordan Love is not playing because he certainly wouldn't be a 2.5-point home dog against the Lions. If we find out he is, this is probably your last shot, I would say, today before they reveal a practice report to take Green Bay. I understand Detroit. If it's not Buffalo, it's Detroit playing the best offense of any team in the NFL. But I'm guessing if Love plays, this is a pick'em. Right now, it's Lions minus 2.5.
Yeah, I think, Craig, right now the Lions are the class of the NFC. I think they are the unquestioned best team. I think especially with how the 49ers have not been good through the first 8 weeks of this season. And I don't think the Packers are that far behind him. And Love sounded to me, listening to him on Wednesday, as a guy that seems like he's going to play. It seems like Love is going to go out there. They don't mind that he doesn't practice all week. They've done it in the past and he's played. That's how often he gets hurt, that they have experience with him not practicing all week and then going in there. But I think that Detroit, whether Love plays or not, is still going to go into Lambeau. I believe they've beaten the Packers 4 of the last 5 meetings between the two of them together, and they continue to flex their muscle. Not going to do what they've done the last week. They've been pounding teams. Going to be close, but I think the Lions are going to win in Lambeau, Love or no Love. And if Love doesn't play, it's tricky because the Packers have shown you this year that Malik Willis-led offense, with all the running and all the different things that they do, sweeps to Reed, lots of Jacobs, Willis running, sweeps, it works, but I don't know if it'll work against Detroit. Very tough physical defense. I like the Lions, Greg.
All right, Lions minus 2.5. If you're going to bet that, maybe wait because you'll probably get a better line on Sunday if Love plays.
Would wait.
You can get a pick 'em or -1, yeah. By the way, the Lions are favored. Carver's made it clear he's taken the Lions to win the division, but they are minus 130, Packers plus 300. Vikings we're going to get to now. They're plus 360, and then the Bears, after that tough loss, 18-1. Vikings have come back down to earth. This should not be a surprise. They were a little fraudulent, I thought, at 5-0. But, Mike, what 5-0 does is it pretty much punches a ticket to the playoffs. So I would imagine that even if they play 500 ball the rest of the season, they'll get in. But how do you kind of assess where they're at the moment?
They're kind of falling back to what I thought they were. I know they got out to 5-0 with some good wins. They beat the Niners at home. They beat the Texans at home. They had some really solid wins that kind of took me back and said, wow, maybe this team's a little bit better than I thought. But I really haven't thought coming into here that they were that great. Are they going to make the playoffs? I think they can. And I think they're going to win on Sunday night, Craig, because of the team that they have coming into their building. Colts doing the right thing, switching to Flacco, but there seems to be a little bit of division and confusion in that locker room. Yeah. Whether you listen to Anthony Richardson, you listen to some of their wide receivers who were kind of caught off guard by what's happening here. They'll score more points with Flacco, but I think the Vikings will get themselves back on track. I actually love the over in this Viking-Colt game on Sunday night, Craig. I think you're going to get lots of points. Vikings probably cover the number, but I love that over 46.5 even more.
Yeah, I mean, Flacco is very good against teams that don't have great edge rushers, but if you can get that edge on him and disrupt, you see what happens. Sometimes it goes the other way. All right, we'll catch you on Coast to Coast today, 3 o'clock Eastern. Thanks again, Mike, for coming on, and appreciate all the information. Thanks again.
Craig, always good to be with you on NewsWire. I will talk to you again soon.
All right, Carver High coming up 3 o'clock Eastern. Mafia, Scott Farrell, and the whole gang. 3 o'clock Eastern today. All right, up next, my buddy Joe Pisapia from Fantasy Sports Today is going to join us here on the show. Joe does a fantastic job each and every week doing YouTube videos and posting all of his content over at Fantasy Pros, and also hosting, of course, with each and every Sunday with Matt Stryker here on SportsGrid as well. So stay tuned. He's coming up next. More NewsWire after this.
He will be 2-7 against top 5 opponents in his 6 full seasons with the Buckeyes.
Now you're going to take on the road, one of the best rush defenses in the country in Penn State. You're already having trouble rushing the ball. So what does that mean, Ben? That means Ohio State is going to have to rely on Will Howard to throw the ball on the road.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. For those of you who are unaware, each and every Saturday and Sunday, we have exclusive fantasy sports content with myself and George Kurtz on Saturday morning, and my next guest, Joe Pisapia and Matt Stryker, on Sunday morning here on SportsGrid. And we have Joe to go over the latest in the fantasy football universe. Joe, great to have you back here on NewsWire. It's been a while.
Good to see you, my friend. Yes, it has. And we're the B team. Right? You know, like we're the FSTB team, Stryker and I on Sundays. You know, you guys are the lead squad. We're just there to support. That's really what we're doing on Sunday.
Yeah, we're the F team. I have no idea what you're talking about. Sunday morning it's fantasy football time. They're throwing me and George on a Saturday morning? Come on, man. You guys have a prime spot there. But anyway, speaking of prime spots, let's go over some start and sits this week, some debates for people who are playing in the standard 12-team leagues, or maybe some others as well. We'll start off with the Rams. It was a renaissance last week, getting Puka Nacua back, getting Cooper Kupp back for Matthew Stafford, who looked as good as he ever has. Last week, 4 touchdowns, 279 yards. But I guess, Joe, the question becomes this week with the news that Puka Nacua potentially suffered an injury in practice this week. Do you still hold the same confidence in a big game for him this week?
I do. The reason is Seattle. At the end of the day, that's the big reason too. If you look at since week 4, Seattle's allowed the 7th highest passing yards per game, the 5th most passing touchdowns, and the 2nd highest passer rating, and not to mention the 4th most fantasy points via passing. So that's a lot of numbers going in the wrong direction for the Seattle Seahawks. So even if it is just Kupp, but it looks like Nacua too, it seems like it was just a tweak of something. So we'll get the practice reports later today. If he gets even a limited in, I would be very optimistic that he does play. But he's ranked right now in the Fantasy Pros ECR as the 11th expert consensus ranked quarterback. And I think with good reason. He's a terrific DFS value this week. He's a really good prop bet as well if you're going to go over some of those yardage totals. And as you mentioned, when you have those 2 weapons back and you're dealing with, 2 number 1 wide receivers, that's a lot for any defense, but especially for Seattle. I feel like the Rams kind of look at the landscape of the NFC West and they're starting to think, hey, why not us? The Arizona Cardinals aren't blowing the doors off anybody. The Seahawks, after a fun couple weeks to open the season against some lesser opponents, all of a sudden they kind of showed us who they are. And the 49ers have had their struggles. I think we can all agree on that. So if the Rams can snap off a couple wins, especially big games like this is almost like a playoff game for them. So I expect all hands on deck as they try to scratch and claw back into this race. And I would not be shocked if they gave the 49ers a run for their money down the stretch too, because that schedule is a lot more favorable than the 49ers.
Yeah, and they got to get it done this week if that's going to happen. And as Joe mentioned, Nakua will find out later today in practice report. If he does not practice, it could be just Kupp. And then, of course, DeMarcus Robinson, who scored 2 touchdowns last week. All right, so let's go now to the Tampa Bay running back situation, which has been murky all season long. I mean, I think Bucky Irving is the best running back they have there, Joe. It's just that they definitely, the coaches, as he said, riding the hot hand. That's been the case. Rashad White has played and Tucker has played. Every time Bucky touches the ball, it seems like good things happen. He's just not touching it enough.
Yes, but in this instance here, you're also going against the rush defense of the Kansas City Chiefs that's yielded just 576 rush yards. That is the second best in the league in terms of stopping the run. And if you're thinking about game script for this game too, even though I really always like Baker Mayfield as an underdog, I think he's going to be plucky, and I think they might actually even cover this number because the Chiefs really haven't put teams away. This offense hasn't been quite as explosive as it was in years past with Tyreek Hill, or even at times last year when Rashee Rice was healthy. We'll see if Hopkins can start to get himself more involved in the offense and help that factor. But with Bucky Irving dealing with that toe injury, we all know the foot injuries for running backs is typically a bad thing. And if he is indeed that early round back, or early down back, I should say, this is a situation here to monitor closely because the Chiefs, again, very good against the run. Bucky Irving, not 100%. The game script might also not be working in their direction necessarily either. So Bucky Irving is a really tough start this week. Him and Rashad White are basically neck and neck. And if I had to pick one, if I had both of them, I would actually play Rashad White this week because based on game script and based on the fact, too, we're missing Chris Godwin that slot, you can see Rashad White continue to get a lot more workload in the passing game like you saw Cade Otton in the last couple weeks, too, with the injuries to Evans and Godwin. So Irving, a tough start, tough matchup. I think we pivot this week, but hopefully that toe gets better in the weeks ahead. You can consider starting him again.
All right, fair enough. Now let's go over to Cleveland. The offense looks at least a little bit rejuvenated. For 1 week they did against the Ravens with Jameis Winston starting, and also Nick Chubb starting to come into his own. And it seems like, from all indications, they're using him a little bit, Joe, more and more just to kind of get him acclimated, and they almost have no choice with Jerome Ford being out. 74 rushing yards, 5 targets, 10 receiving yards. Seems to be getting more playing time there. Is it time to put Nick Chubb back into our starting running back lineups? I think most were using him as a flex up until now.
100%. He's the only running back, too, this year to rush for more than 50 yards against the Ravens, who've been, again, the best against the run, the only team better than the aforementioned Chiefs. So Nick Chubb, that snap percentage went up, it doubled. He looked really good in that game. Really tough matchup. And don't forget, next week they've got the bye. So if they have to push Chubb a little bit further here, this is a really good situation where you can rest him next week. Hopefully everything is going to work out in 2 weeks from now. And then you continue to see Nick Chubb get back to that guy that he used to be. The work ethic's off the chart. The talent's off the chart. I think all of us are stunned what we've seen out of Nick Chubb so far this early in the game. And I love Cleveland in this game. I'm not going to lie. I mean, last year you saw Joe Flacco come in and play hero. And guess what? He took that team to the playoffs. And now Winston's in the situation too, but it's even better now because he's got Nick Chubb. Joe Flacco didn't have Nick Chubb last year. So you see the emergence of Cedric Tillman, a guy that we talked about 2 weeks ago. We told everybody to start last week. And all of a sudden you've got some wide receivers to throw to. You've got Nick Chubb running the football, and Winston's going to play with reckless abandon. That's what he's always done.
Right.
However, Nick Chubb looks like a guy pretty healthy when you go back and look at the tape and you see the jump cuts and the moves he's making against that really stout run defense of the Ravens. So I think he's more like an RB2 this week than even a flex spot. I'm very confident, and I think it's a great opportunity to buy him now, especially with the bye week looming, because Nick Chubb managers might be frustrated just waiting and waiting for him to get healthy. And now he's finally healthy, and now you're going to have him on a bye. Well, you know what? This is a great time if you're a team high in the standings to pounce and buy him on the last time you might get him on the cheap.
Yeah, this would be it coming up this week, as Joe mentioned. You can catch Joe and Matt Stryker Sunday mornings exclusively here on SportsGrid. Joe, it's great to see you. I know I'll see you Super Bowl Sunday. I'm guessing that'll definitely be the next time. I don't know if there'll be a time before that. Thanks again for coming on.
He will be 2-7 against top 5 opponents in his 6 full seasons with the Buckeyes.
Now you're going to take on the road, one of the best rush defenses in the country in Penn State. You're already having trouble rushing the ball. So what does that mean, Ben? That means Ohio State is going to have to rely on Will Howard to throw the ball on the road.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Getting ready to wrap up the show here for this Friday. We're going to touch on a very big topic coming up for us in Missouri next week. Also get ready for a parade and a whole lot more. It's time now for some last licks. All right, well, as everybody knows, the election is coming up on Super Tuesday of next week. And a lot of things are at stake. Certainly the presidency is at stake. But for those of you living in the state of Missouri, sports betting is also at stake. In fact, it's on the ballot, number 2 on the ballot for sports fans and people like you who are listening or watching in Missouri. In fact, there's a new report from Data Tracking on GeoComply, and they're the company that tracks all this stuff, that reveals that folks who live in Missouri tried to make over 11 million bets this football season and could not. Think about that. 11 million attempted bets to be placed, but because sports betting is not legal in Missouri, they failed to do so. Why do I bring this up? Because Tuesday, it feels like there's a pretty good chance that we're going to finally get a new state to legalize sports betting. And in fact, it is Missouri. So stay tuned to SportsGrid, and on Election Day and the day after, folks, we don't cover the presidency here. It's NewsWire on sports. But we will cover this story, and we'll see if, in fact, sports betting is legal. And if so, next weekend, there's a chance you'll be able to bet on the Kansas City Chiefs, or against them if you want, in Missouri next week. All right, guess what's coming up in, I think, about an hour from now? It is the Parade of Parades in Los Angeles. Get ready, folks. You thought traffic was bad before in LA. They are about to have a parade for the Dodgers. In fact, it's coming up later this afternoon on the East Coast, morning, I guess, sort of on the West Coast. 9 a.m. festivities begin, and that's noon Eastern Standard Time, and 11 a.m. it begins over at Grand Park. It's going to be covered live for all of you who are streaming in Los Angeles. The Dodgers, of course, ended up winning the World Series this past week. And I guess the only question is, what cart is Shohei Ohtani on, right? Like, when you're watching, have you ever been, I've been to a parade because we've had championships here for the Miami Heat and also the Marlins at the time, the Florida Marlins. So I've been to these before, and it's always fun not only to see these guys and girls talk, but always where they sort of end up on the street. And they're doing it early enough that I don't think any shenanigans are going to be in play. By the way, super security for this as well, as the Dodgers get ready to hold their parade. Okay, so we end the show with a rite of passage now, which has become an annual tradition. Every single November 1st for the last couple of years, we've seen these videos posted by Mariah Carey, who sings the song All I Want for Christmas Is You. But I feel like every year, earlier and earlier, people are preparing earlier for this holiday. And by the way, Mariah Carey has made a living of, I mean, she hasn't even, I don't think, released any stuff in the last 10 years, but she released a new video last night on social media saying basically November 1st, it is Christmas time. So, I mean, how is this even possible? We still have 2 months before this happens. She used to do this, by the way, the day after Thanksgiving, which is still 4 weeks away. But now November 1st, I guess, signifies this. I know this is not a sports story, but how in the world did we get here? So does this mean eventually we're going to move this to before Halloween? Because we literally just had Halloween last night. For those of you who do this kind of shopping and are going out and getting ready to get your trees and all this stuff, I guess you love it because it's earlier and earlier every year. And Mariah Carey is getting bigger and bigger. And this song, by the way, is going to be on iTunes like the #1 song in like 2 weeks. For somebody who isn't into it, I don't get it. But if it works, so be it for Mariah Carey. That'll do it for our show today, and that'll do it for our week of shows as well. I want to thank today's guests here on the show, Joe Pisapia, who you can catch with Matt Stryker on Sunday morning on Fantasy Sports Today. Also want to thank Bill Bender from Sporting News for coming on, and also thanks to Carver High, who you can catch on Pharrell Coast to Coast at 3 o'clock Eastern. For those of you looking for a companion app to learn more about what we do here at SportsGrid, just take out your phone and scan this QR code. It is the SportsGrid app. It is completely free on iTunes and Android, so make sure you download it. It's available right now. Thanks again to Jake for filling in for Luke as our director the last couple of days, and also for my producer, Frank. I'm Craig Mish. I'll see you tomorrow morning for our next edition of Fantasy Sports Today. Me and George Kurtz get you ready for the upcoming week in the National Football League. If fantasy sports isn't your thing, and this show is, then guess what? I'll see you back here Monday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, for our next edition of NewsWire. Have a great weekend, everyone.
'57.
He will be 2-7 against top 5 opponents in his 6 full seasons with the Buckeyes.
Now you're going to take on the road, one of the best rush defenses in the country in Penn State. You're already having trouble rushing the ball. So what does that mean, Ben? That means Ohio State is going to have to rely on Will Howard to throw the ball on the road.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and